Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Let's begin today's daily quiz with question number 1 on your screen. Which of the following ministries is the nodal agency for observing Azadi ka Amrit Mahotsav celebrations? Is it the Ministry of Culture, the Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of Urban Housing Development, or Ministry of Health and Family Welfare? The correct answer here is A. Ministry of Culture is the nodal agency responsible for the celebrations with regard to the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. We are discussing this because the entire newspaper today is filled with the budget announcements, and there have been a lot of news articles about what allocation has been given to which ministry and which department. One of the articles in today's Indian Express is about the increase in allotment to the Archaeological Survey of India and to the entire Ministry of Culture, which indicates the fact that the government is putting a lot of emphasis on India's tourism and culture related activities. As per this article, the total budget allocation to Ministry of Culture has increased by 13% and has reached over 3,000 crore rupees, out of which one third is given specifically to the Ministry of Culture. The article says that Ministry of Culture is a nodal agency for Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav celebrations to commemorate 75 years of India's independence. There is also a provision of 110 crore rupees made under its centenary and anniversary celebration scheme given specifically to the Ministry of Culture. The flagship schemes under the ministry include Kala Sanskriti Vikas Yojana, development of museums, international cooperation, centenary and anniversary celebration schemes, development of libraries and archives, etc. Next, question number 2. Consider the following statements with regards to alternate minimum tax. Number 1. It was introduced in 1988 for the first time to bring zero tax companies into the ambit of tax. Second, companies are taxed at 15% under this regime. Third, it is not applicable to foreign companies operating in India. Which of these given statements is or are correct? The correct answer here is A. First and the second statements are correct. The third statement here is wrong because it is applicable to all the companies who are working in India, including Indian as well as foreign companies. The concept here is simple. The companies that make a certain amount of profit, when they have to declare their income, they use a lot of tax exemptions given to them under the law. Because they use those exemptions, their taxable income becomes very low or almost zero, and they hence don't have to pay any tax and they become zero tax companies. So despite making some profit, there are many companies that don't pay any tax. The government does not want that to happen, and that is why in 1988 for the first time we introduced the concept of alternate minimum tax, meaning that if you are a profit making company, you have to pay a minimum amount of tax, that is 15% right now, irrespective of how many deductions that you use. So whatever deductions are given in the law doesn't matter, but you have to pay at least 15% of your book profit as a tax. This used to be 18.5% earlier, but it was reduced to become 15% now. The reason why we are discussing this question is because as per the budget announcement, cooperative societies also now have to pay 15% as the alternate minimum tax. The good news is earlier cooperative societies had to pay 18.5% as the alternate minimum tax, and now they have been brought at par with the other companies, and now they will be taxed at 15% when it comes to alternate minimum tax. Not just this, as per the budget, for cooperatives having a total income above 1 crore rupees up to 10 crore rupees, the amount of surcharge that is charged on them has also been reduced. Right now it is 12%, and for the next financial year it will be reduced to 7%. This will help in enhancing the income of the cooperative societies and the members who basically come from rural and farming communities. The newly created Ministry of Cooperation, headed by our Home Minister, has also been given an allocation of rupees 900 crore rupees, out of which 624 crore rupees will be used for digitalization of primary agricultural cooperative societies and prosperity through cooperatives. Next, question number 3. Consider the following statements with regards to cess and surcharge. Number 1. The central government levies both cess and surcharge. Second, both are collected and taken into the Consolidated Fund of India. Third, state governments cannot share any of these. Which of these given statements is or are correct? The correct answer here is D, since all the three given statements are correct. Cess and surcharge forms a part of that income of the central government that is not to be divided with the state governments. It goes directly into the Consolidated Fund of India. That is why state governments are never happy whenever the central government announces increase in cess or surcharge, because it will not be given to the states in any way. The reason why we are discussing this is, as per the budget announcement, there is a change in how cess and surcharge are perceived. Till now, when a company pays cess and surcharge to the government, they claim these as deductions from their taxable income, and thus they had to pay lower taxes. But from now onwards, the government has said that starting from 2005-6, so it's a retrospective amendment, any cess and surcharge paid cannot be claimed as deduction in the form of expenditure. So, for example, if you are earning 10,000 rupees, you tell the government that out of these 10,000 rupees, I had a lot of expenditure to make. I had to pay my rent, I had to pay my salary, etc. After all that expenditure, I only had 1,000 in my pocket. So you tell the government that I will only pay tax on this 1,000 rupees. The deductions are gone. The government says other deductions are fine, but from this income, now you cannot deduct cess and surcharge, so you have to pay tax on that money. The reason why this has been done with a retrospective effect is that education cess was brought for the first time in the Finance Act of 2004. So to ensure that all the deductions that were claimed in the form of education cess are now reimbursed to the government has introduced this with a retrospective effect. The finance minister also said that when pharmaceutical companies give any gifts or freebies to the doctors, which is a very common practice, that also cannot be treated as business expenditure, and they have to pay a tax on that as well. Next, question number 4. Consider the following statements with regards to International Financial Services Center, IFSC. Number 1. An IFSC caters to customers outside the jurisdiction of the domestic economy. Second, the first IFSC in India has been set up at the Gujarat International Finance Tech City in Gandhinagar. Third, the SEZ Act 2005 allows setting up of an IFSC in an SEZ or an SEZ after approval from the central government. As you know, SEZ stands for Special Economic Zone. You have to tell which of these given statements is or are correct. The correct answer here is D. All the three given statements are correct. India's first IFSC has been set up as a GIFT city. GIFT where stands for Gujarat International Financial Tech City in Gujarat's Gandhinagar. It is mainly to cater customers who are outside the jurisdiction of India's domestic economy, and these are set up under the provisions of the SEZ Act of 2005 only after approval of the central government. The reason why we are discussing this is because this budget has announced more facilities and shops for IFSC. It also says that an international arbitration center will be set up at the GIFT city for settlement of disputes under international jurisprudence. In the budget, the government has proposed that income of non-resident from offshore derivative instruments or income from royalty and interest on accounts of lease of a ship, etc., in IFSC shall be exempt from any tax. This is done to attract more international firms to come and open up their offices at the IFSC to enjoy these tax exemptions from the Indian government side. Next, we have a previous year question from 2020. Rajya Sabha has equal powers with respect to Lok Sabha in the matters of creating a new All India Services, amending the constitution, removal of the government, or making cut motions. You have to tell in which of these following instances Rajya Sabha has equal powers to the Lok Sabha. The correct answer here is in amending the constitution. As you know, the constitutional amendment bill has to be passed in both the houses separately by a special majority. Not just this, in case of a constitutional amendment bill, you cannot have a joint sitting of the parliament where Lok Sabha would have an advantage. In all the other matters, be it the creation of All India Services, it is the Rajya Sabha that has exclusive powers of initiating this process. For removal of the government, as you know, the no confidence motion can only pass in the Lok Sabha. It is initiated after at least 50 members support the motion. Cut motions, which are an integral part of the budget discussion, again only happens in the Lok Sabha. So for all other matters, the powers of Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha are unequal. Some other instances in which Rajya Sabha has more powers than Lok Sabha include the removal of the Vice President of India, and for empowering the parliament to make a law on a state list subject without asking for permissions of the respective state governments. Next, we have a fact of the day, and today we will be discussing about green bonds. This news in the Hindu newspaper today talks about green bonds targeting carbon neutrality, helping India to achieve net zero target by 2070. Now, in very simple terms, bonds are an easy way for the government or for the companies to raise money from the market. For example, the government of India needs money from the market. They will ask you to buy a bond for 1 lakh rupees at, let's assume, 8% interest or 8% bond yield. So after 1 year, the government will return to you 1 lakh 8,000 rupees. These are usually what bonds are. Now, green bonds are when the government or the corporation is raising the money specifically to be used in a climate change related or environmental friendly project. That is what green bonds are. That is, it's a debt instrument to raise capital for green projects specifically. These can include projects related to renewable energy, clean transportation, sustainable water management, etc. These are traditionally given a fixed rate of interest to the investors who are buying them. If you look at how these bonds initiated, it was in 2007 that they were launched by a few development banks such as the European Investment Bank and the World Bank. After that, in 2013, companies also started participating. The companies that are looking to work in the area of green energy and sustainable development. In India, SEBI has put in place disclosure norms. That is, if a company has to issue some green bonds, there are certain provisions that they first have to fulfill. The benefits are that when a company introduces green bonds, it improves their reputation because people think of that company as a positive company trying to make a significant change in the environment. It also ensures that the commitments made by the country, such as net zero target till 2070, can be achieved because we will have more capital for investing in these kind of projects. They can be raised at lower cost because for such projects, if the companies go to market, they might have to pay a higher rate of interest. They are also helpful in ensuring that there is growth in the sunrise sector. Sunrise sector means the sectors that are now emerging, such as the renewable energy. However, a recent study by the RBI shows that there is not a lot of excitement in the market for green bonds. The RBI study says that green bonds make up only 0.7% of all the bonds issued in India since 2018. Most of the green bonds issued in India are by the public sector units or corporates having better financial health. This is it for today's discussion. Thank you so much for watching the video.